Hi guys, and welcome back to another video Game with the Powers. I'm Jake, and in today's video I'll be giving you guys an overview and my first impressions of the board game Wild Gardens, coming to you from Gauntlet Games. This is designed by Vega, and our art here is by Liz Menold. Now, Wild Gardens is a game for ages 14 plus, 1 to 4 players, right around 90 to 120 minutes. Wild Garden, you are looking to basically forage food and find some friends by serving them. The overall premise of the game, or really this is kind of like a resource management game where you are going to be going around a board collecting resources, using those resources to cook recipes, and then using those different recipes to go ahead and serve your friends that you meet out in the wilds. So let's go ahead and jump down to the table, guys. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the game Wild Gardens, and then I'm going to give you guys talk about my first impressions after I have played this game the first time. All right, guys, so we are down here at the table where we would have everything set up for a playthrough of Wild Garden. So like I mentioned earlier, the overall premise of this game is you are going to be moving around this board right here, and you are going to be stopping at these different points, and you are going to go around and collect these different resources. Now, there is a whole bunch of different resources. You know, we have mushrooms and leaves and seaweed and bark and onions, or garlic. I think that's garlic, acorns and stuff like that. Now, also I do, this is probably a good time to mention that this is a deluxeified version of the game. So the source tokens that you see here, and these tokens right here, these ingredient tokens, these are all wooden upgrades as an add-on, and so are these like little decks, these deck boxes that I have here. Those are all add-ons that come with the premium wooden source token add-on, or pack I should say, and then the wooden ingredient token pack. You can still actually, you guys can get this. This is not a Kickstarter exclusive. You can get that online of Rose Gauntlet's website, which I'll put a link to that down in the description. So back to what I was saying. You are moving around this board, okay, and you are taking a couple different actions. You know, these actions are going to be collecting these different resources. You are then going to be taking these different resources and you are going to be crafting a bunch of different recipes, all right? And so there's a whole plethora of recipes. You can see here that some fennel pasta is going to require 3 leaves and 2 flowers. There are different types of ingredients. So you have dinner, you have drink, you have dessert, you have lunch, and then the last one is breakfast, okay? So you have a bunch of different types of recipes. So you'll take those ingredients, use them to cook these recipes, and then use those recipes to go ahead and serve some of your friends that you are going to meet along the way. And these friends are going to help you score victory points. They might give you some end game bonuses, like at game end, right? Gain 1 star for each skill token and things like that. So that is the overall premise. When you cook recipes, you score victory points. When you serve friends, you score victory points. You're going to have a victory point track over here where you're going to track all of your points that you score, and the player with the most victory points at the end of 2 trips is going to be the winner. And so there's a location deck here. You will take 1 trip. That trip will last 3 days. At the end of that, you will flip this over to begin a new trip. All right, guys. Well, look, that is pretty much an overview of how to play the game Wild Gardens here. So let's jump right in and talk about my first impressions and what was my first experience like playing Wild Gardens. Well, guys, me and Sierra thoroughly enjoyed this game, even on the very first time that we played it. I think one of the best things about Wild Garden is kind of the ease of play with this game. And so what's going to happen is each player is going to have their own specific player board here, and there are really only 3 specific actions that you're going to be able to take. This forage action, which is going to be able to allow you to collect those resources. You can either cook or serve, so cook a recipe or serve somebody, and then go to the library or reserve a recipe. Okay, so those are the only 3 actions. And what's cool is you have this little action pawn system here that, let's say I take this 3, I want to move the 3 over to forage here. I will then need to move 3 spaces on the board, and there's like little arrows on the board that you can take around to different places. I'll move my 3 spaces and then I will take that action. Now, when you want to cook or serve, you must be on a campsite spot in order to do that, but any other spot you land on, you can forage. And so you'll kind of notice that each spot has like 3 different places to forage. So in this spot, I can forage here for seaweed, mushrooms, or acorn, right? If I'm in this spot, I got berries, seaweed, or acorn. If I'm down over here in the corner, I got leaves, flowers, and acorn. So there's always 3 different spots where you will be able to forage resources. And then once you get these resources, these tokens will stay out on the board for that whole trip. You will take them from the pile over here. So that is pretty much the ease of play, guys, is you have these little action pawns. You're placing those action pawns down. Whatever number is on your action pawn is the required number of spaces you must move. You cannot move less than that number. So since I chose 3, I would have to move 3 spaces, and then I take my specific action. So getting the game to the table and teaching the game to somebody is super simple and super easy to pick up. And like I said, that overall premise of like your basic goal your base goal of the game is just to use these action pawns to go around and collect these different resources. Now you will have a market set up. Okay, I don't have that market set up, but you'll have 6 recipe cards out and 6 friend cards out to serve. Okay, so that will be somewhere out on the table, but you basically have that market, see what resources you need, get those resources, and then start cooking recipes and serving guests. So that's what the first thing I really enjoyed about the game. The next thing is kind of what looked exciting is the replayability factor here with Wild Gardens. So you are taking trips, right? And there are 12 different trip cards in the game. So if you want to go through this whole deck, you will need to play this game a minimum of 6 times to be able to go through every single location. As well, there is an abundance of different recipe cards here, all right, that you can see. And same thing with the guest cards over here. There is an abundance of guest cards as well, all of them with their own unique abilities and victory points and things like that. So it looks right from the jump that there is going to be a ton of replayability with this game, just based upon all the different locations, and then each location has its own special ability as well. So a ton of replayability here. The source tokens are going to be in different spots every time you play the game. And then you have, I never talked about, you have this library board over here as well, where you can gain more skills on your board. So for example, the way you do this is you take that library action, and then whatever area you are in of these source tokens, if that book is available, you would take this book and you would put it in your little spot right there, and then you would gain this skill. And then there are different spots you can put these skills, and what I like is you are not required to go left or right. You can mix and match however you want, but then the next time you take that action, you have this skill. You will be able to take this bonus skill every time you take that action. All right, so it looks like there is a ton of replayability with this game, with all the different people, all the different recipes coming out, the way the board is set up, all the different locations. That looks really cool as well. Something else that I really enjoyed, particularly with the game, was the sacrificing of your action pawns as you move throughout the days, right? So let's say, for example, we're taking our trip in Indiana. You see these different locations here. At the end of the particular day, at the end of the day, which is when you spend all of your action pawns, you must then sacrifice one of these action pawns to put them up there. and whatever number you choose, you will gain that bonus immediately. So actually, let's say I did my number 4 action pawn right there, I would get a bonus of 2 flowers. Now, when we start day 2, I only have 4 actions available to me. And so then when you finish day 2, you'll put that pawn there, and then when you start day 3, you only have 3 actions. While most games have some sort of format like this where, or maybe not, but some games have a formula where, like, as the game goes on, you get more and more actions. This one is unique in the fact that, like, yes, you're asking me to sacrifice actions, but I'm also getting a bonus for those actions. And so what's cool is you can see all 4 of the available actions and kind of plan your future turns ahead to be able to maybe get some of these particular actions that you want. So I found that to be very enjoyable. The mechanics of the game was very smooth and very player friendly. The last thing, guys, we really enjoyed was just the overall presentation of the game. We were really impressed with that. What's really cool is there are reversible sides on the victory point board and the main board itself. So, you know, you can choose to play on this side or flip the board over and play on this kind of purple side if you would like, more of a brighter side. And same thing with the game board itself. Forgive me as I dump all of these tokens off on the board here. They have this side of the board. You can also flip it over and play on this side, and you can see that the pathing here is a little bit different. So that's cool. There is no specific like 1 to 2 player or 3 to 4 player side. You can play a 1 to 4 player game on this side and a 1 to 4 player game on this side. So I think that is really, really cool as well. And I was very impressed with that because it just adds to more of the replayability of this game. The final thing I want to talk about that is actually really, really cool is they have a solo scenario booklet here. And this thing is pretty thick, guys. It's around 46 different pages here. There are 7 different scenarios in this game for solo play. And essentially what you are doing is you are just trying to craft specific recipes and serve specific guests. And so how that solo mode works is particular guests will have a number on them. And so like when you kind of set up the scenario, it'll say, take these people out. Your goal is to serve them. And then when you serve them, you will go to that entry in the solo scenario book. You will read that specific entry and then it'll take you to your next objective. And then of course, there will be a certain point where you will end that particular scenario. Now, this is not a campaign. It's a scenario-based thing. So you can play any scenario in any order that you would like. I do believe they have these scenarios ranked from difficulty. I don't want to spoil too much, but those are the different scenarios that they have. I do believe they are ranked by difficulty. Obviously 1 being the easiest, 7 being more challenging, but I think that's really, really cool as well. You don't see a lot of games that do something like this for the solo play, right? They just either have a solo mode or an autonomous mode. Here they give you a cool scenario booklet, and like I'm curious to see if this starts to become a trend in a lot of these different board games, kind of catering to some of the solo crowd of having with the base game have like a solo scenario to your game as well. But those are just some of the few highlights, guys, of to why I was really, really impressed with Wild Gardens and really, really enjoyed our first playthrough of the game. All right, guys. Well, look, those are my first impressions of Wild Gardens, getting it to the table. I have dabbled and messed around with those solo scenarios a little bit. I played like half of the first scenario and it's really good and it's actually somewhat challenging. You know, it's really exciting to have almost like a scenario feel to a game such as this. Wild Gardens really reminds me a lot of Chai. I don't know if you guys can see it. I got Chai right down over here. Reminds me a lot of Chai, where you're collecting those resources, you're kind of serving people, right? More of a one more step in Wild Gardens. You got to make the ingredient first before you serve people. And so, but it's really cool. It gives me that chai feel. And if you guys watched our top 100 games in our collection, chai was up there. I do believe chai was in the top 20. So I'm curious to see, as I get this game more to the table, how am I going to compare it more to chai? How is it going to stack up? Am I going to favor this game more than chai? So I'm curious to see how that works out. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, smash that like button, hit that notification bell. Go ahead and comment down below. Do you guys own Wild Gardens? If you do, comment your thoughts and opinions on the game. Even if you don't own the game, guys, comment your thoughts on opinions. Does Wild Gardens remind you of anything else? All right, last but not least, if you guys are not subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe so we can keep bringing you some more awesome content. All right, guys, y'all have a great one. Bye.